Welcome to the NNN Show. I'm your host, Chris Tices, and we're here to talk about a different subject. As you know, with the NNN Show, we talk about you know, video games and real life issues and things like that. It's the Variety Show. And we're here to talk about Newstart Allowance. Now, you might be wondering what this is. And Newstart Allowance is the unemployed benefit that you get each fortnight here in Australia. And this has been an this has become now a bit of a national issue with a range of people from former politicians to current politicians from, both from the left and the right, ring parties calling on for an increase to New Start allowance. Now, for those wondering, I am currently on New Start allowance, and living on the payment has been extremely tough. Now, what I'm going to do is show you a clip from a Greens MP here in the Australian Senate to give you just a bit of an idea about what the New Start allowance issues have been. So check out that clip now.
What's the point of Parliament if we're not here to advocate for the right thing to do, to help people and to argue our case for good policy measures that help genuine human beings that is in fact our job to be in here and represent? So I feel very disappointed at the lack of hope, and sure, we've got a hideous government that doesn't give a damn about anyone except its wealthy donors, but we see positive steps with people in the business community calling for an increase in Newstart. Of course, we have ACOS and other fantastic community organisations that have long called for an increase in Newstart. But we now have people in the Nationals calling for an increase in Newstart. We now have people in the Labor ranks calling for an increase in Newstart. So I just don't accept that it is a waste of time for us to be continuing to raise this and to put the actual experiences of people who are being forced to live so far below the poverty line. It is beyond a lack of dignity. It is a crime, in my view. I think that is actually a really important task for us. That is how we convince people to change their minds and to do the right thing and to step up and actually act like a government and act in the interests of people. The evidence is really clear, and we saw just 2 weeks ago, under some misguided attempt at economic stimulus, $158 billion dished out, 90-odd billion of which is going to people that are already extremely wealthy. Now, all of the economic commentators say that is not the way to create stimulus. Those people will bank that money. We have 3 million Australians that are living in poverty, below the poverty line, on Newstart. You want economic stimulus, even if you don't care about the human face of these people, and it's pretty clear you haven't so far. You want economic stimulus? Lift Newstart. These people are desperate to spend that money because they don't actually have enough money to meet their basic needs. I'm sure they want a second-hand pair of shoes to go to that interview. I'm sure they want the bus fare or the petrol money to get to that interview. Or I'm sure they want to buy their child lunch for school. This is real people that we're talking about.
So you can tell that the New Start allowance is very inadequate. It is extremely low to live off. One of the articles, which is interesting, a survey of 500 people on New Start and Youth Allowance, saying that they are skipping meals, medications and showers to save money. So 84% of those people said that they have skipped meals to save money, with about 16% saying that they skipped more than 8 meals a fortnight, which, to be honest, I'm actually surprised it's that low. I think it's probably higher than that, to be honest. There has been calls for a $75 increase to the unemployed benefit. The current government does not want to do that, believing that if we can quickly find jobs for people like myself, then we won't have to be on New Start allowance for too long. Unfortunately, that's not really the case. Jobs are hard to find. The economy is very difficult, and it does not mean that putting people under the poverty line is really going to motivate them to, or get them to even find a job. When the government says a job is the best way, is the best way for welfare, really what they're saying is living in poverty is going to be your motivation to find a job. And unfortunately, making people poor and making people skip meals and not, be able to pay the electricity bills is not going to be a very good motivational thing. Moving across, the ACOS chief executive said that people were skipping meals because of the grossly inadequate payment. Um, the survey showed that they can't afford rent, food, energy, clothes, transport, haircuts, dental care, or internet access, which severely hampers their chances of getting a job, especially if there's only one job available for every 8 people looking, and that's the current situation here in Australia. More than 60% report that they've not been able to see dentists in 2 years. People are now no longer purchasing food that requires refrigeration, so they actually turn off the fridge, one respondent said, which is um, pretty crazy. So I'm living off $40 a day, which means that I don't regularly eat that much myself. I'm regularly skipping meals. I don't have 3 square meals a day. I might just have 2 meals. I have like a little bit of Weet-Bix or porridge in the morning, have a bit of toast during the day, and then I might have like a pasta meal at the end of the day. And you tend to have the same meals every day because you can't afford anything fancier or nicer. Buying fruit and vegetables is very difficult because the cost of that is quite high, and that makes it very hard for me to live off. Now, I wish, I had a good, successful YouTube channel or Patreon or some sort of job that I could get that would lift me out of the poverty rate, but unfortunately, that's just not the case. And it's been such a big issue. Um, Another thing, the Salvation Army report said that instead of that $40 a day that you're living on, after you take out all the accommodation costs, people are really living on $17 a day, which is extraordinary. And the Morrison government needs to, you know, give a shit about human life and increase the payment. So the last time it was increased was 25 years ago. So they're living off an unemployment benefit wage from the mid-90s. Now, everyone knows that the cost of living has definitely risen in the past quarter of a century. And unfortunately, it's just really, really tough to live off. I'm not doing that well. I have a mostly empty stomach doing this video because, if I have another meal now, I might not be able to eat anything for the rest of today. So you've got to, space out your meals and that. And, I'm sort of putting on not so a performance in this video, but you got to look a bit more awake at times, and it's tough. It's really, really tough to live off this payment. It's extraordinarily hard. The government doesn't want to do it because they don't want to break the budget. So they care more about um, putting a surplus in the federal government budget rather than actual human life and pulling them out of the poverty. And that's what, they were actually re-elected a couple months ago. I mean, I know the reasons why, but it's just here. It's the way of the world. You look at the UK, you look at America. It's not a pretty looking world at the moment. Let's just say that. And, I'm not living very well, to be honest. And there are 3 million people um, who are on this benefit. There are millions of people on this benefit who are not um, living. They're just um, struggling to feed themselves. This is a poverty issue that's gotten out of hand over the many years, and I don't know where this will go, but I'm hoping that something happens this year or next year, because it's going to get worse for people. People have probably died on this payment, trying to feed themselves and trying to make a life. And Centrelink, which is the unemployed benefit sort of, it's a social security sort of department. Their system's pretty rough too, and it's not a well-run department as well. So it's been a very very bleak world for people living on it, and including myself and many, many others, single parents and older Australians who can't find work. If you're over 40 or especially over 50, no one wants to hire you. So what do? You sit on Newstart until 65, 67, to get your age pension, and you don't have much super in your account or anything like that, so you're basically stuffed. So it's a very bleak situation, and I don't know what's going to happen. But at least, for the audience at home, you might have a bit more of an understanding of my life at the moment. Even the next fortnight, for my pay cycle's looking terrible. I'm probably going to have something like $30 of food budget for the next 2 weeks. So it's pretty rough for me. So there's nothing I can do about it. So that is it for me, and I shall see you later on.